The great event of God's revelation at Har Sinai was preceded by the establishment of a justice system in Israel. Immediately after the story of the revelation at Sinai, the Torah continues by enumerating a major part of Judaism's civil law. This point was not unnoticed by Rashi, who in the beginning of his commentary to Pirkei Avot writes that this juxtaposition teaches us the significance of justice within Judaism, that justice is divine. And this message really has been following us throughout the Torah, whether the story of the reason why Avraham was chosen to be the father of the Jewish people, because as the verse says, that God knew that he will teach his children and house after him to go in the way of God and do tzedakah u'mishpat, and do justice. We know this about Moshe, who until age 80, every story we know relating to Moshe deals with his fighting uncompromisingly for justice. So everybody's for justice, and that's clear. The difficult question is, justice for who? We're all for justice for ourselves. The question is, are we for justice for the other? And who is the other? I would like to present, in the context of this week's Parsha, Parashat Mishpatim, a number of circles of inclusiveness of where the Torah believes who deserves justice. And I'll begin by Judaism's relationship to non-Jews. We mentioned in the past about the very heroic act of the daughter of Paro, who chose to save Moshe despite the fact that Moshe was part of a different nation, a different people. And within the Torah, Moshe, in the beginning of the book of Sefer Devarim, says that when a question of justice comes in front of you, do not show favoritism when you have a dispute between your brother and the ger. Ger in the Torah does not mean convert, the way the word ger is used nowadays. Does not mean a convert to Judaism. Ger in the Torah means a non-Jew who's living in the land of Israel and who is not a worshipper of idolatry. And in our Parsha, as well as a number of places in the book of Vayikra, they define the relationship to those people, the ger toshav, the sojourners who are dwelling in our land. We are commanded a relationship of love, v'ahavta the ger kamocha. We must love the gerim as we love ourselves. And the Torah even goes back to our painful experiences in Mitzrayim to call upon us to show compassion for the others who are living in our midst. The Torah reminds us, we know what it is to be a sojourner in another person's land, because that's what happened to us when we were in Egypt. The Torah hopes that our negative experiences in Egypt will not lead us to acting in the same way that we suffered in Egypt to impose suffering on others, but rather we should know what they're feeling and as a result treat them properly. Within Parshat Mishpatim, in a number of places, they relate to compassion and feeling for even beyond, and rights even beyond the realm of humanity, but for animals as well. When the Torah teaches us, it brings down the commandment of the Shabbat is for not only for us, it's for servants, and the Shabbat is also for animals. One of the commandments of the Torah is not working your animals on the Shabbat, and this is not in order that we should rest, but in order that they too deserve a day of rest. In our Parsha, we talk also about the 7th year, the Shemitah, where we relinquish our ownership on the land and let all come and eat freely from what previously was our land. This allows the poor to partake of that which is growing in all the lands. But the Torah makes clear this is also for the chayot hasadeh, the animals, to also come and freely eat in the fields. And throughout the Torah, there are much legislation relating to animals, and there's a principle that it is forbidden, according to the Torah, to cause pain to animals. There's a story in the Talmud that there was a calf being led to slaughter, and in fright, the calf ran away and hid next to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the author of the Mishnah. And Rabbi said, "Go, this is what you were created for." And as a result of Rabbi's insensitivity to the calf, the Talmud says that Rabbi for many years suffered from an illness that was cured only on the day that he expressed compassion for some rodents that were discovered in a corner of his house, and when he mentioned the verse, "Virachamav al kol masav," God's mercy is on all of his creations. And I think it's no accident that Bambi, the book and movie, was written by a Jew, and there we have an indictment of hunting for pleasure itself. In fact, I'd like to end by going to yet a broader circle of compassion, and in the context of a story that happened 20 years ago, when I was in Russia. The Soviet Union had recently collapsed, and Rabbi Steinsaltz established a yeshiva in Moscow, the first yeshiva after 70 years in Russia. And people would come, we had set students, but many people would come for Shabbat to see what's it like Shabbat in a yeshiva. People came from all of the former countries of the former Soviet Union. And one Shabbat, I find myself sitting on the lawn with someone who had come from the Ukraine to see what a yeshiva is all about. And we're sitting there on the lawn talking about God and Shabbat and very lofty matters, but I notice he's constantly plucking grass out of the lawn. And one of the laws of Shabbat is not plucking things that are attached to the ground or trees, not harvesting them, it's forbidden to pluck grass on Shabbat. And I think, what am I going to tell him? On one hand, tell him that don't do that on Shabbat, going from all the lofty matters to such a small technical detail might have a negative impact on someone who's just coming to see one Shabbat. But on the other hand, it hurt me to see a fellow Jew violating the Shabbat when we're talking about matters of holiness. But ultimately, I remembered the story, and then I knew what to do. I told him the story that once Rav Aryeh Levine was walking with Rabbi Kook, and as they were walking, absent-mindedly, Rav Aryeh Levine plucked a leaf from a tree. Rabbi Kook stopped and looked at him in shock. Rav Aryeh Levine asked, "What happened?" And Rav Kook told him, "My entire life I have tried never to needlessly hurt any living thing." I told him the story. Right away I saw he was very moved. He stopped plucking the grass, and we continued with our conversation. But there's an ironic end to this story, because a year and a half later I made Aliyah and came to live in Israel. And my first stop was the yeshiva that I studied in previously, Yeshivat Har Sinai. I arrived during lunch hour, I enter the lunchroom, and suddenly someone from the other side of the lunchroom stands up, rushes over, and gives me this big hug. And I have no idea who this person is. It turns out that was the person who was together with me in the summer of 1992 on the lawn in front of the yeshiva in Moscow. And the irony of the story is that person is called Alexander. He wasn't even Jewish. Not him, not his mother, not his father. He had read about Judaism, became interested, And after coming to the yeshiva for that Shabbat, he decided he wanted to convert, become a Jew. And ultimately, I had the privilege to be one of the 3 rabbis in the Bet Din that was present when he went to the mikvah and entered Judaism. Shabbat Shalom.